The button behind the Vizumi bit. Good evening. Please pray with me. Creator God, help us to hear your truth through what I say. Help us all to understand more of how simplicity could enable us to know you deeper. Amen. Simplicity. Simple, eh? Last week, you heard Andrew talk about the spiritual discipline of solitude. I had a little bit of a laugh at his expense at that when he was given that one to preach on. However, I think he's had the last laugh as I now have simplicity to speak of. In my life, I have been one of the most consumeristic people, if that's a word, consumer-driven people that I've ever met. At times in my life, I have owned the best trainers on the market. A custom-built computer which was better than anything else that you could buy out of a box. I had a PlayStation 2 and Xbox One, I think it was at the time, and a Nintendo GameCube all at the same time, set up in my lounge with 2 TVs so we could watch TV and play at the same time. I had a passion for stuff. I loved the latest stuff. I loved planning to buy stuff. I loved looking at stuff. In fact, my favourite magazine was called Stuff. And then I met Wendy. And Wendy has some really lovely things. But she really doesn't have any stuff. And I think for me, the difference between stuff and things are things things you want to keep. The things that you hang on to. Stuff is stuff that gets outdated. You know, you've had it 5 minutes and the next one's better. So you want the next one. So it's replaceable. For me, things are things that you hang on to, have an emotional attachment to. Stuff is the easily replaceable, if you have enough money, obviously. And Wendy has, over time, taught me that life isn't about getting stuff. Even really nice stuff. When we first got together, my aim in life was to own something that was just about to come onto the market, and it was called an iPhone. And that's what I wanted. But money was tight. We were together. I had other priorities in my life. Obviously the Spike as well. By the time I got my first iPhone, it was an iPhone 4. I now have a really nice iPhone 5S and I love it. But I'm due for an upgrade in the next couple of months. And I'm thinking, I don't really need a new phone. I love the one that I've got. I've got loads of storage on it, so that's not an issue. There were no scratches on the screen, although there are a couple of scratches on the bodywork, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. There was a time in my life I would have been inconsolable about a couple of scratches on my phone, even if it had been a Sony Xperia, or even worse, a Nokia. So, do we need stuff in our life? I think in this culture we live in, yes, we probably do need some stuff in our life. Could we live simpler? Could we simplify our lives by decluttering some of that stuff? What about our time? How do we spend our time? Do we have lives that revolve around a diary? Do we have a time to ourselves? Do we have specific time to spend with God? Or does God just sort of fit around the life that is so busy for us? And suddenly we think, I haven't had a chat with God in a while. I haven't had a prayer time, or read my Bible, or done anything with God in days, in weeks. Do we fit God around our lives? rather than put God in the centre of our lives. In our culture, time is often looked at as one of our most precious commodities. But do we really use it wisely? This week, I think, I've had a busy week. I've taken Wendy to the doctors 3 times. I've been working on the discernment report. I've had my mum to stay for 3 days, and believe me, that takes a lot of time and patience. I've been able to see Wendy's daughter and her boyfriend for a meal. I've taken the car in for an MOT and service, and all it needed was a CV boot, thank you God. I've seen my spiritual director twice. I've been shopping at Sainsbury's. I've been window shopping in Seaford. I've been shopping on the internet. I've played at least 14 hours of games. However, most of that was probably whilst watching at least 30 matches of Wimbledon. I spent 4 hours watering the garden, at least 4 hours watering the garden. I've written this sermon, and I wrote it on paper so I could sit outside in the sun, because I couldn't do that on my laptop and I hadn't had any time to sit in the sun. And I don't work. And I would say I'm one of the least busy people that I know. Over the past week, I've spent an hour doing nothing, having nothing planned. And because most of that time was unexpected, I just wasted it by turning the TV on. Before Wendy and I got together, I realised the importance of having me time, and I scheduled it in. It was in my diary. Every 3 to 4 weeks there would be a day with one word on it. Always when Spike was staying at his dad's or my mum's or with SJ. And that one word was a word that I made up, but all my friends knew it. It was CPOD. And if I was asked to do something on one of those days, the answer invariably was, I'm sorry, it's a CPOD day. CPOD, in the church-worthy clean version, stands for Sarah's Everybody Else Pee Off Day. And my CPODs were sacred to me. They were days in which I did whatever I wanted to do. Sometimes it was going to the beach, going for a walk, praying, listening to music very loudly, playing computer games, watching movies at the cinema or at home, eating complete crap all day or going to a really nice restaurant. One of my favourite things was going for a drive. In fact, one day, on one of my CPODs, I went for a drive. At the end of my drive, I had to phone a friend because I planned to do something with her the next day, and I'd made it to Wales. So I decided that I'd probably stay over in Wales rather than get back that night and then go out with her tomorrow. But somewhere in the busyness of life, as a mum, as a partner, as a carer, as a friend, I've forgotten about the importance of time to myself. In fact, it was only as I was writing this sermon that I remembered my CPOD days and how much I loved them. And it's a conversation Wendy and I will be having again shortly. In this world of ultra connectivity, we need time to disconnect. There's been a study done of high-powered business people who stopped checking their phones and emails first thing in the morning. They weren't allowed to do anything with technology for an hour in the morning. And without fail, every single one of them said that their relationships at home had improved. They were happier throughout the whole day. They were more awake throughout the whole day. And they were more relaxed. And even better than that, for their businesses at least, they became more productive because they didn't do anything in that first hour. So taking time out is good for us. And what about our spiritual lives? In this world of consumerism and busyness, what about God? Over the past 8 months, we have become a church where over 90% of our regular congregation regularly, actively participate in the services or in the midweek groups. 90%. That is an amazing figure. And I know of no other church which can boast of a figure like that. When I told my spiritual director about it, and he's an Anglican vicar, he nearly fell off his chair. And that quite obviously is down to you guys. This week we have Kim doing things from up front. She's never led before. We have Rosie in a minute. She's going to bring us prayers and communion. She's never done that before. And that's exciting. And I wish there was some sort of formula that I could bottle and give to churches across the world, because it really is amazing. And we need to remember and keep in mind that because we do things for the church and for God, but that doesn't automatically mean that we have a good relationship with God. And please hear me on this. If I thought that there were people in this church that were having a problem with this right now, I would not be addressing it in this fashion. But it is something we need to remember and bear in mind. It's something we need to be on guard against, because it can be quite easy to fall into a pattern of being busy for the church and God and not actually spending any time with God, or even time doing what God wants us to do and is calling us to do. Jesus told us what he wants us to do in very simple language in the reading tonight. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbour as yourself. So there you have it. Love God, yourself, and everyone else. Simply said, simply done. Probably not, eh? But it all comes down to this. If you're not spending money on stuff, which will be out of date by the time you've unwrapped it, you'll have more money that you could help other people with. If your day is filled with job after task after chore, you'll have more time. If your day is not filled with job after task after chore, you'll have more time to love yourself. And if you spend time with God and listen to God and do what you think is being asked of you and not just what you think you should do or what you're being asked to do, you'll be demonstrating your love for God. So, love God, love yourself, and love your neighbour. Simple. Amen.